All right. So everyone, I thought I might just speak a little bit about my experience with AI. AI at this point doesn't really mean anything, because everything is AI. Because ever since ChatGPT came out, every day there is some kind of shit going on. You have no idea what is AI anymore. So specifically when I say AI, I mean LLMs, right? Like large language models, and using them to help, like, basically I will speak a little bit about how it helped me in my day-to-day as a front-end developer. So in a summary, I think LLMs have come a long way, or LLMs and LLM tools, right? So first of all, you started with ChatGPT, right? So this was something that the first question that my girlfriend asked ChatGPT when I showed it to her, which is like, write a poem about space kittens, right? And this was kind of how, if you remember, this was kind of how the whole wave began. When ChatGPT came, everyone was just asking it to write poems, write funny stuff. And for a while, it was just really fun to see what, the LLM could come up with, right? Because before ChatGPT, there was nothing that allowed you to really play with text and stuff as ChatGPT did, right? And then came, of course, GitHub Copilot. And of course, the first versions of Copilot were extremely simple. If you remember, it's just autocomplete, right? You write some text, you write some code, you get some more code. You even if you want to request something, you write a comment and then you get some more code. That's how Copilot began. And now we have Copilot, like, what is it? Copilot Ask, Copilot Edit, Copilot Agent. So now you have all of this stuff on top of it that are much more powerful than what we originally started with. And that's really what I'm trying to say here, is that, yeah, like like LLMs have come a long way, and now you have got to LLM agents. And LLM agents, I think, are a bit of a game changer. It's, I don't know, I think it's maybe a slightly controversial take, because I think also LLMs and AI and all of it are getting a lot of hate right now as well, rightfully so. But I think underneath the noise, there's still something that maybe we should pay a bit of attention to. And I think the thing that you should pay attention to are LLM agents. And for me, like, I also, like, there was all this noise, and I was also starting to, like, tune out and not really pay any attention to it. And for me, my journey with LLM agents began when I saw this a LinkedIn post from an old colleague of mine named Vojta, also named Vojta. And yeah, you can't really read it, but I would just say it's full of jargon. Like, I read this, like, as any LinkedIn post, like, not much of it makes sense, but there's so much jargon in there. And I read it, I'm like, I don't understand any of this. I don't know what this is. I don't know what a data brick is. I don't know what an Apify is. I don't know what a client is. I don't know what open router is. And I didn't like that. So I started looking into it a little bit, and I tried to use this client. So client, has anyone used client here? Wow, yeah, surprisingly no one. Yeah, so no one has heard of it actually, right? So I used client, and that kind of broke my brain, because I'll show you what, like, my first interaction with client, what it was. So what client is, it's a VS Code extension. It runs on the side, right? And the cool thing about it is it can interact with the editor. It can, like, for example, now all of these commands, these are coming from client, right? I gave it a simple command to say, hey, set up a Pocket-based server, and now it's basically running my editor, right? It's typing in the commands. It can type in the code as well. It can interact with the editor, like change files. But the insane thing is, it can also interact with the browser, right? So now part of the setup process is that it has to click around the admin UI, like, enter, like, the sample, like the root user access and so on. And you can see that it's doing that, right? I'm not shaking my cursor at all, and it's doing all of that by itself. And the first time I saw this, my mind was broken. This is like, this should not be possible. Like, this is, I mean, okay, I speak very well of it, but of course there are some downsides. First of all is that this is extremely expensive, right? Like, even for this session, it cost me, like, almost a few, like half a dollar, let's say. And of course, like, now I trusted it to run commands on my machine, so it can run whatever the hell it wants. Also kind of tricky. And yeah, it also is a bit slow. Like it takes time to, like, it's maybe faster than what you would how than you would do it. Like, I mean, for me, I don't really remember like the path to the zip file off the top of my brain that I can just download, right? So it can do stuff a bit faster, but yeah, it's still not ideal. But this is what really opened my mind to LLM agents. I'm like, okay, I need to pay attention. There is something going on here that I should not miss. So I started digging around, and Klein at the time when I tried it, it was quite buggy. Like this is like the newer version of Klein, which I just recorded for this talk. But like when I tried it, it was a bit buggier, but it still was able to do the same kind of stuff. So I started digging around, and I came across this thing called Aider. Has anyone heard of Aider? Maybe. Yeah, because I guess you've read my post. Yeah. Yeah, so Aider is, I guess many of you might have heard of Claude Code, maybe. Yeah. So Claude, if you've heard of Claude Code, then Aider is maybe the predecessor to Claude Code. It does sound, now that I'm saying it out loud, it does sound like AIDS or like some slightly off, but like it's a strange name. So Aider is basically a open source LLM agent. The cool thing I think with Aider compared to like Claude Code or any of this stuff is that it's open source and it's open model, meaning that you can pair it with whatever model you want, and you are not really locked into, like, let's say the Anthropic models or the OpenAI models. You can even run it on your own, like self-hosted models. I tried it. I mean, I don't have a supercomputer at home. I have actually an ancient computer at home. But I think if you have like a slightly capable machine, you should be able to even run it locally. And what it can really do is, you like in my case, I just usually leave it open on the side, and you just you ask the agent what you want to do, right? Like you ask it to implement this, you ask it to implement that, and for the most part, I was surprised by how much it actually could do, because okay, it still can't do one shot stuff. I can't say, hey, make me $1 billion app. It's not going to do that, right? But if I say, hey, put together this page, and or rather like okay, sometimes it might not even do a page, but if I say put together this component in React, it would manage. For the most part, component level stuff it could do without any problem. And once you have a few components and asking it to put it into a layout, it can manage that as well, right? So I used Aider like as just to try it out. I used it to build like a small app for myself, and I was able to like build a 4 or 5 screen React app in 2 days, and it was built on top of it used the component library, it used Mantine, and it was just the React SPA, because I also am maybe old fashioned and I'm not a fan of Next.js and this shit. So yeah, still React SPA, but it was able to do that. And with like all of these commits, for example, is Aider, right? Like all of this, like anything that starts with feet, because it uses this type of stuff, all of this stuff is with Aider. And when I was trying to build this, I tried really not to write code, not to write it myself. And now that I'm speaking of it, we come to the problem with LLM agents, right? The first thing, of course, is that they are extremely unpredictable, right? You ask one thing once, and you will not going to get the same results again. They are very temperamental, they really have a mind of their own, and you can never control them. And I think if someone tells you that they can control them 100% of the time, you should run, because that guy doesn't know what the hell they're talking about, or they're selling snake oil. I don't think it can be 100% controlled ever, but I think it's up to the point where you can maybe control it like 80-90% of the time. If you give it proper instructions, if you give it enough like context, it can really like manage to do like most tasks, not everything, but most of them, right? The second thing is, of course, control issues. And when I say control issues, I think you will think of something very different compared to what I'm meaning, because when I say control issues, I mean personal control issues, right? Which is the fact that, if you have actually been a developer before LLMs, you are used to writing code. You are used to having full control over every single line of code that you write. In the era of LLM agents, you can't really do that anymore. It's generating this whole thing, and you have to trust it. And letting go of this, let's say, need to control every single line and have it exactly the way you want, that kind of holds you back. All right. So this is what I mean with control issues, that it's a bit of a different paradigm that we're entering with LLM agents. And I think a big challenge, like individually and then also industry wide, as industries or companies, they are slow behemoths, they are stuck in their old ways. This will be a big issue, I think, or like a big topic for sure, that you are not willing to let go of the control that you used to have, that you're used to having so far, right? And the last thing is, of course, speed versus quality. It's not a new thing. It was always a thing, like you could do it fast or you could do it good, you know and it was always a thing, and now it's much more of a thing than it used to be as well, because now, because in the past you still had to like write the code yourself. Now something else can generate it much faster for you, and you can choose to completely ignore it, and many people do, I think, right? But then also at the same time, you need quality, right? Without quality, you are going to have really shitty stuff. So where do you draw the line, right? And I think that's also an interesting question or debate that I think is going to play out in the time to come. How fast do you go? Because I think also with all of these LLM agents and LLM stuff, there is pressure to move faster also, right? The expectation, like, I mean, I've heard, like, there are many stories floating around of like someone's boss or management saying, hey, I like ChatGPT was able to fix this bug in 10 minutes. Why can't you do it in 10 minutes? Right? And the reason is because you know what you're doing, and it's gonna take a while to actually fix it right, and no LLM will ever do it right. So this issue, let's say, is gonna become more and more profound, I think, as time goes on. Right? So to wrap things up, I think I will maybe cover a little bit of stuff about getting the most out of LLMs or LLM agents. It can work for both. The first, I think, is the fact that context is king, right? So when I say context, I mean just like the prompt, just what you ask from it. I think there is also like some theory going on that if you can fit everything into the context, like if you can send your whole code base to an LLM, you will get the answer, that LLM can do everything. I think maybe someday, not yet. Right now, the situation is such that if you don't give enough context to a model, you are not going to get good results. And if you give it too much context, that means you send it an entire code base, you send it too much stuff, you're not going to get good result either. So the solution is a balance between the two. You need to give it enough information that it can work well, but not too much information that it gets overwhelmed and lost and just does random shit, right? And you might be asking, okay, what is the balance between the two? How do you know what is the right amount? And that brings me to the second thing, which is you have to find out for yourself. All of this basically comes from intuition. It comes from just using it and kind of getting a feel for how it works. And because all of them, as I said, they're very temperamental creatures, LLMs. You really, like, no matter how hard you try, they will never work fully consistently. But if you use them, like if you try to use them more and more, you do get a sense for what they are capable of. Like, for example, when I was using IDEA to build that small app, originally I struggled, for maybe the first day, for the first few hours, I struggled because I tell it to do it, it won't do it, because I kept asking too much of it, for example. But then I scaled it down a little. I was asking for, like, let's say, medium level tasks, and it could do it, right? So to build that kind of intuition, that's the only way, really. You have to really use it, try it, and see how it works. And of course, in my experience, I find that the performance the output, the quality of the thing you get from an LLM, it really varies based on like which language, which library, which framework you use. So there really is no answer. Like someone might say, hey, like recently there's this announcement of Sona 4.5, which is like, this is the best coding agent ever, and people immediately were like, no, it's not. And it probably is good, but like no one can make such like broad claims, right? Because its actual performance on your own use case is going to be very specific to you, right? Like it will vary. Your experience with it will not be the same for someone else who has maybe using the exact same stuff but has maybe one small dependency that's different, right? So it varies. So this is, again, stuff that you have to kind of try and figure it out for yourself, right? And I would maybe close out by just saying, like if you take one thing away from this talk, let it be that you should maybe just keep pushing the limits all the time, because it's very likely that if you've tried LLMs or LLM agent tools in the past, you kind of have your impression about it. You might think they're crap, you might think they're god level stuff, right? But the thing is, a lot has changed, right? A lot has changed, and they do keep changing. Like maybe by the time I finish this presentation, what I'm saying might be out of date. It's kind of how it goes. So if you take one thing away from this presentation, just let it be that always try to push the limits, right? Just try to, if you tried something with LLMs in the past, you tried some task, you tried to get it to do something and it failed, don't give up just yet. Try with a different model, try the same task again, try phrasing the task differently, and keep trying it. As new models come out, as new tools come out, keep trying it, because I think you'll be surprised, as I was, because originally when I tried like these like medium level tasks, or even like writing components, like writing small stuff, it didn't do it, right? And now I think now my expectation is that they can tackle like medium level tasks, but maybe that's also wrong at this point, because I haven't really got the chance to dig into it so much recently, but maybe now they can do even bigger ones. But yeah, this is what I mean. Just keep pushing the limits, keep trying more, trying different models, different tools, and you might be surprised. So yeah, to close out, this presentation is mostly based off of a blog post that I wrote on my blog. So this is, if you're interested, this is the link to the post. I try to write a post every month about stuff that I've found useful or helpful in front end or web development in general. So if you're interested, you can join the mailing list as well. And yeah, I think that's about it.